Hello lovely person on the internet, my name is NayaCat, and today I am going to redraw some of my old creepypasta characters. So I've been thinking about how I want to make this video and what exactly I wanted to talk about. But I decided to just, go off script and just, kind of casually talk to you guys about these characters. So first of all, I'm starting with Jasmine Jones. She was my Jeff the Killer copycat, as some of you might have noticed. She didn't really had any personality traits other than being a killer. And what I noticed back in the day, a lot of people had like Jeff the Killer copycat OCs, one of the more popular ones being Jane the Killer and Nina the Killer. Like, nothing against those creators, but I like to think that nowadays it would be like the Spider-Man OCs from the Into the Spider-Verse fandom, which I find really funny. But back to Jasmine, you can clearly see in her old design pretty much the same color scheme as Jeff the Killer, but I did give her glowing red eyes because she wasn't like the other characters. Oh, I'm cringing just thinking about my thought process from back in 2014, and which is almost 10 years ago. So weird to imagine that. Jesus, I feel old when I think about that. But anyway, at some point I decided, like, you know what? I'm stepping out of the creepypasta fandom, but I want to take my characters with me and, kind of make them more unique, I guess. I will say, from every character that I own, which are like over 150, which is a lot. But anyway, Jasmine is the one that is probably the least developed, because so far I did move her out of the creepypasta fandom and didn't make her just a serial killer. She is now a doctor, as you can see. But she is still very much a character that I have no clue what to do with other than her being a doctor in my fictional town for all my characters. She is a doctor, however, for the more supernatural characters I own, so which are like demon hybrids, werewolves, vampires and such, because I want to make her a doctor with a little bit of spice in it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, that's basically it for Jasmine. I'm still thinking about what exactly I want to do with her, because I still want to create that more a little bit of creepy factor in her, because she was once a creepypasta OC, so I feel like, that should be a little bit in her character. Like, I was thinking that maybe she experiments on patients who have done criminal activities and such, and I know for a fact that doctors aren't told if their patient is a criminal or not, but I feel like Jasmine is the type of person who will figure it out on her own and then act on her own. And another idea that I had was going into a more Dr. Frankenstein type of way, like she wants to kind of manipulate the deaf and sort of kind of revive them. I mean, it makes sense because her mother is a mortuarian. The people who work with dead people. I can't pronounce it. I don't even know what it's called in Dutch, so. As for Jasmine's design, she is pretty much still the same character, but of course more with a doctor outfit, obviously. Like, she still has her black hair, her pale skin, and now she has brown eyes instead of the glowing red ones, because that doesn't make any sense. I did, however, decide to give her a scar on her left cheek. For us it's the right, but for her it's the left. So to kind of, indicate that she once was a Jeff the Killer ripoff. And it's just kind of me owning it, and I like to think that maybe she got the scratch from one of her supernatural patients, like maybe a werewolf, and it just never healed correctly. But since she is a doctor, she knows how to treat it well, and that's why it hasn't been infected yet. And I think that's pretty much it for Jasmine, so let's quickly move on to the next one, shall we? So next up is my character Sarah Tomkins. And she was an Eyeless Jack ripoff. Like, I didn't see a lot of those back in the day, so I was like, I'm just going to make one myself because I'm different. Oh, it was so bad, but remember, I was like 13 or 14 years old, so that's the age of the ultimate cringe. Anyway, this isn't even her old design that I'm showing you. Her old design was her with purple skin and pretty similar clothing to Eyeless Jack. And she even had this similar mask but just cut halfway. I just thought that made her look cooler for some reason. But anyway, I like Jasmine. I never gave Sarah a backstory. It was just like, you know what, I'm just going to design this character and just leave it in the fandom without giving a story. Which is pretty bad, but I feel like a lot of young artists just create characters just for the sake to create characters. Which is nothing bad about it, but if you're trying to pass them off as creepy characters, then maybe a backstory and such would be necessary. So eventually I did try to come up with a backstory for Sarah, but just couldn't, and at some point I didn't even know what she was, so I changed it to her being a type of monster, being a sort of zombie creature or whatever, and it just all didn't make sense for her. But at some point when I decided to create my own universe with all of my characters, I decided, you know what, I can bring a bit of inspiration from the SCP Foundation in it, because in this universe, supernaturals exist, and I can create a foundation or something that experiments with them, but also with humans. And that's how I came up with the Supernatural Experimentations Establishment, or aka C. And basically what they do is, like I said, they experiment with humans and supernaturals alike, but they basically wanted to see how far they can go until somebody truly loses their humanity. And in this universe there's also like a police force for the supernatural, so what C was doing as an organization was actually highly illegal, or is still highly illegal in this universe. So you might think, hey Naya, what does Sarah have to do with this? And I'll tell you. Now, where does Sarah fit into all this, you might ask? And basically her new backstory goes as follows. She is from a rich family, but she is anything but spoiled. She basically just acts like any normal teenager would, and would try to involve everyone within group activities and such, and she was just known overall as a sweetheart, unlike the rest of her family, on her mother's side especially. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, there was this boy who had a crush on her, but Sarah didn't really feel the same way, so she politely rejected him. But the boy, of course, didn't take it politely and just thought it was the rudest thing ever. So he knew that his family was affiliated with this C thing. And so he just grabbed something from their office and injected Sarah with it, or, well, not injected, but he spiked her drink with it or whatever, which caused her to be part supernatural too. And so she did notice things were getting different, her teeth were getting sharper, her eye was starting to hurt and such, and she just didn't know what was going on. But eventually these people came at their door, because the boy obviously at some point told his parents like, hey, I may or may not have just grabbed something from your office and threw it in a girl's drink or whatever. So the parents weren't happy about it, because now they had to grab the girl away from that to just further experiment on her. Because if the special unit, which is the police force for the supernatural, discovers that they are still pretty much active, they will be in a lot of trouble. So they managed to grab the girl while she was going home from school at some point, and ever since that day, Sarah basically has been missing from town. And actually, till up this point, Sarah never really wanted to go home, because she is now aware that she is a supernatural, so she isn't sure how her parents would react to it. And I think, well, I know for a fact that Sarah is more afraid of being rejected by her own parents because of how she looks like right now. So let's talk about her design now. I did lean more obviously into her second iteration, which is with the pink and more normal human skin. I'm still actually not so sure what she is. I was thinking more of a like Wendigo type of creature or skinwalker, basically. Well, not basically, but more so because she is still very much a person who eats human meat, which is why she still has sharp teeth. She doesn't necessarily need to eat human meat, but it just tastes better for her. Like, regular food just tastes very wrong for her. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just an unpleasant taste that she'll have if she eats like a hamburger or something, even though that's technically also meat, but it's not raw meat, so that's a difference. As for her clothing, I decided to go a bit more easy with the blood and such and more go with the dirt, because the establishment eventually got caught by the special unit and all the experiments escaped, which included Sarah, and she had been wandering around the forest, which is called the Tenebrous Forest, and she was wandering in there for a while before she was finally taken in by some people who live within the forest. As for her eye, it's just an affected eye. It does have something to do with her being a supernatural, but like with Jasmine with the cut on her face, it's kind of like a throwback to her once being a eyeless Jack ripoff. And, you know, it just kind of stuck with it, and she'll probably often wear an eye patch once she has some new clothing or finally finds some new clothing. But yeah, that's basically it for Sarah, so let's move on to the last one, and this one is a treat in my opinion. So the last one of my three girls is Talia Underwoods, or better known as Blue Eyes. I love her. She was the only one who I had made completely on my own without ripping off some other characters. But funny enough, people were quickly to compare her to Sally Williams from the creepypasta Play With Me. And that got me so confused because I was like, what? They don't even look like each other. Until this day, I'm still pretty much salty about it. I believe I even mentioned it in my sketchbook tour video, but it still irritates me and I don't know why. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that, we're just going to talk about Blue Eyes. And just like the other two, she didn't have a story either. Well, I mean, she did had some stories, but all of them didn't make sense with the way how she looked. Because the first one was her being judged for being a witch back in the Salem witch trials, but then I was like, I don't like it. The next one was her being in some sort of accident or something, I believe, but I didn't like it either. So now again, I changed it, and it's more simpler than that. Basically, what happened is that she was stabbed in her sleep, but her killer was never been caught. But a lot of people in the village believe that it was her parents, because they also moved away shortly after her death. So till this day, her death is pretty much still a mystery. So unlike the other two, pretty simple story really, but sometimes you don't need to go over the top. I mean, she is already a dead little 9-year-old, so tragic as that, you can almost not make your character. But the thing is, what you might ask is, hey Naya, she looks pretty for a creepypasta OC, which is why even back in the day she still looked pretty for a creepypasta OC, but now there is a reason why she looks that way. You see, I have 4 more little girl ghost characters, and each of them, including with Blue Eyes, represent one of the 5 stages of grief. And Blue Eyes is the last stage, which is acceptance. Pretty much unlike the other 4 girls, Blue Eyes has already accepted that she is no longer alive, which is why she now looks like a pretty ghost. Even though she is still stuck in limbo, she just is living her best afterlife right now. And the thing is that other little kids do see her in the pretty form, but I like to think that adults and such do see her in the form in which she died in, which is with the stab wounds and everything. As for her design, the only thing that pretty much changed is that I made her outfit and the doll more timely accurate. I suppose that's the word. Because, yeah, she didn't really look like somebody from the 1960s back in her old outfit. Or 1970s, I believe, late 1970s. But now she looks more accurate to the time period. I believe at some point she was my favorite character. And don't get me wrong, I love each and every one of my characters. But what I mean with favorite character is a character that I often sketch or draw whenever. and right now this is the first time in a couple of years since I drew her, and actually all of them, and it gave me some nice sense of nostalgia for me. And even though I am no longer active within the creepypasta community, back in the day it did, silly enough, it did help me through a rough time in my life, and it also allowed me to connect with other people over the internet, which I just found pretty amazing, and with some of them I'm still even close friends with till this day. I also like to think that creepypasta slowly introduced me into horror as, you know, a medium, and right now I do associate horror and creepypasta both with a sense of comfort, weird enough. Which is funny because even though reading back some creepypasta stories or thinking about it, I never found one really creepy or one that really sat with me. But I still liked it nonetheless, and more so I liked thinking of characters for within the fandom, and there were still like new creatures added and Slenderman proxies and such. Of course, you know, I had them all. Anyway, this is basically it for the video. I don't really have a lot more to add, and if you've been watching or listening to this video the entire way through, you deserve a medal, because it's just me rambling, but you know, I have fun talking about my characters, and I feel like making videos is a more easier way to kind of explain them better, or my design choices, even though I often end up rambling about it. I still like it very much. Maybe I should script my videos. Have a nice day or evening or whatever time it is for you. And maybe I'll see you next time. Bye bye!